Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice to have you on here. So we're waiting for a few more people to get on here. We'll start in another minute or so. And either way, because we don't wait for things to happen. And I think today we're talking about pricing and negotiating listings, right?
That's
So I
right.
think it's
It's gonna be a
so.
good one.
Yeah, I love this. I love this stuff, and that's the thing right now is I've been telling people that it's not about the exact same amount of homes are selling that we're selling last year. Like we're literally within last year there was 1,370 this month that sold. This year we're at 1,354. So it's basically the same, but we have twice as much inventory. Okay. Hello, Mr. Lurch. Wearing his championship jacket there. I see.
Two more days of wearing green, today and
Yeah, there
tomorrow.
you go.
Then I'm
That
done.
was awesome.
I've
I
worn
I
green
get
for a
it.
week.
I got to tell you just before we start. I thought because Mahomes' dad, grandfather's in hospice, and I thought as a motivating factor that he was going to destroy you guys. I wanted you guys to win because obviously I don't want him beating Brady as the goat, right? But which is hard for me to want you guys to win. I love you, but but the but I thought he was going to destroy you guys, and you guys dominated. It wasn't even like the score is really it's a lie. The score's a lie, right? The score was
We
like,
had a
let's
second
let them score.
string
Yeah, well, there was some bets there. I think they had in Vegas. They had to make work a little better, so they let you guys score a little bit.
in.
Uh,
There's guy I know guys. There's a lot of money made. A
yep.
lot of money made.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
know
Well,
guys that bought the line down from 1.5 to 6, so they were given the book 6, and then they cut to up the beat. So yeah, no.
yeah, crazy. So there's Dave coming in as Cameron again. I love that, Dave. That's pretty cool.
Magic.
Yeah, he's trying to regain his youth, like we're all trying to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's up, Pedro? Is Peter's Peter's there, and then Peter's gone. There he goes, and he goes. All right,
He's
I'm gonna
muted
kick it
and
off because there are people here waiting to start.
all
So,
right. Let's go.
yeah, he'll be here in a second. He can take over. All right. So today we're talking about listings and how to price them, how to get them sold, how to negotiate. What strategies are you using to do all that? And I always start with you, Kim. So I'm gonna go somewhere else because everybody's getting tired of you talking first. Hi, Dre.
Hey.
Um, and so let's go to Mr. Badiati. Mr. Matt knows everything about everything because he's the smartest guy I know besides me. Matt, how are you getting listings sold? What are you doing for negotiating? What are you doing to on pricing? Are you pricing anything special? Uh, Take it
Yeah,
away.
I really do try to price stuff low and sometimes, I mean, not low. I mean, realistically, I guess is the best way to put it. Um, and if I get if I have to go a little high to get the listing, I'm very quick to make price adjustments. So, for example, I just yesterday late afternoon was on the phone with the seller and got that seller to go from 2.5 down to 2,150,000, which will make a big difference, right? Um, I went on a listing appointment last weekend. Um, the guy had an appraisal for 4 million bucks. I know these are big numbers, but he had an appraisal for 4,050,000. But um, I don't think there's any chance that property is going to sell for 4 million bucks. So I had to have the difficult conversation with them to say, I think it's like 3.5, 3.4, 3.3. Now I may not get that listing, but guess what? I don't want that listing at $4 million. You know what I mean? So, um, I guess the best way that I can put it, I mean, I never want to take overpriced listings. I do look at the seller's motivation because that's a critical point. If I have somebody that says, you know, this is how I want a ridiculous price for this property, and I don't really care if it sells or not. I mean, I want to sell it, but if it doesn't sell, I'm happy to stay here. Those are the listings you do not want to take because they're not lying. They really don't care if it sells. And, you know, so, so I look at motivation, which is really important. If somebody has to
It's
sell,
just a little knob on the speaker. You just turn it up.
No, I did, but it wasn't.
if somebody has to sell, then, and they have
What do you have
motivation, I'll take
here?
it a little high. But like I
Hold on a
said,
second,
I'm
Matt.
very, very
Matt,
quick
Pete,
to
Pete,
do.
turn your mute on there, Pete. We can all hear you.
Yeah. I think I can mute him from here,
Can
maybe.
you mute him?
That was Trey's mute button, not mine.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry.
But anyway, I'm very quick to do reductions if need be. I do give them data when I go for a price reduction. I tell stories. I try to make, I say things like, you don't want to be the last house standing. I mean, while all your other neighbors' homes are selling, and you don't want to be sitting and everybody wondering why your house isn't selling, because your house is beautiful. But we just, especially in this market and the way it's going, we have to be priced competitively. And I have had people lately say things, well, look at that one that sold for X amount back in 2022. I go, yeah, well, believe it or not, the market was a little higher. Even here in San Diego, the median price in San Diego was a little higher in 2022 than it is in 2025. So that's why you're not going to sell for that price. But it's very, very important because, as we all know, it's like magic. You have a listing that's overpriced, you get it reduced down to where it should be, and all of a sudden, you have an offer.
Right.
So, it's a very critical thing. But the most important thing was when you go on that listing appointment is to show them the data as if they were a buyer and have them look realistically at what their house is worth. And what I always like to say, you guys have been out looking at homes. When you're out looking at homes, you see some nice homes that are priced where they should be. And maybe you see another really nice home, but it's overpriced. And what do you say when you see that? And they all say the same thing. They say, that guy must be crazy. We don't want to be one of those guys, So it's very important because that's the truth. You see every home that's listed where it should be, and then you see one guy that's way overpriced. You go, what is this guy kidding? And sellers like to say, well, they could make an offer. Yeah, but they won't make an offer because you're so overpriced. They think you won't take any lower.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on pricing listings. But you got to spend a lot of time looking at the data before you go out on that appointment, because a seller that's a good salesperson and really loves their house will convince you that their house should be worth more than it really is.
Yeah.
So I always like to go into a listing appointment with a pretty firm idea of where I think that thing should be listed, because I don't want to be swayed by what the seller tells me about all their upgrades,
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's interesting too, because I see it a lot. Is with my agents, is they're afraid of the seller, and they're afraid to say and be honest. And it is all about setting expectations. I mean, if you go in there and take a listing that's, I don't mind taking something that's 5% overpriced, and we'll play with that. Maybe 10% in a hot market, but we're not in a hot market anymore. But generally, if it's not going to sell, why would you take that? Now, some people have the mentality of, well, I'm going to take, I'm going to take it because I want inventory, because I want buyer calls. But what they don't realize, and I'll give you a quickie on this before we go to Catherine, is I did that when I first started in the business, because I said, well, if I get buyer calls, good. And I had a guy say, it changed my whole perspective. I had a guy as my first, I was probably in the business for less than 6 months. And he calls me up, and I was really good at converting people to buyers from those listing calls, right? And he says to me, well, the house is overpriced. I go, yeah, I know that. And then I go, and so I did my whole spiel to try to convert him. And he goes, why in the hell would I use you as a realtor? And I go, what do you mean? He goes, if you don't know how to is my listing. He goes, if you don't know how to price a house, I don't need you representing me to buy a house. You're not going to get me a good deal. I changed my perspective immediately upon that. Changed my whole business career. So, anyways, Pete, I'll let you take over after me, but we're going to go to Catherine. And Catherine, what are you doing these days to sell your listings and negotiate and tell people they're schmucks?
Okay. Hi, everybody. Okay, so for my listings, which are up to, I will say, 1.5 million, let's say, I really feel I have the right magic trick these days, which is to go way lower than the comps. And then I put it on the market on a Monday. I don't and then I work them. And the way to sell that to my seller, because they think I'm crazy, is that I let them know, okay, first of all, I show them what I've been able to do the past sales and how I started so low and actually ended up other comps afterwards. But I explained to them that once the agents call me or buyers call me, I let them know right away, hey, by the way, this price, I priced it very competitively because I just really wanted to bring in a lot of people to look at this beautiful home, but I want to be transparent with you, and my seller will not take less than so much. So that has worked so well. I just put one 2 days ago on the market, and that same day, 3 hours later, I had four people looking at it. And this morning, yesterday, I had 2 offers. So, and I gave them that spiel. I started really low at 1,090,000. My clients want a minimum of 1,150,000, and I got 2 offers at that price and over. So that has worked so well. And the strategy of, in this case, I had to show it right away because my clients want to buy another home that they will not accept our offer until we're in escrow. But otherwise, I really use that strategy of going live, not showing it for a few days, then do the open house, get multiple offer, work them. But I am being transparent on what my seller wants minimum, and I should most likely go above what they really want, but still to guide the agent right away that they can express that to their buyers, that they have the right expectation, and that we don't lose time with offer that I know will not fly anyway. So that has worked really well for me. And otherwise, what I realized starting working in Rancho Santa Fe is that it's a different animal. I remember, Pete, I came to you like begging, help me, I don't know how to price this thing. I was so lost, and what I realized there, and you guys tell me if I'm correct, you kind of have to go high over there and hope it sticked. And that's what I did on my last one in Rancho Santa Fe. I sold that home for 3.1 million 15 months ago. It is the same home with a few little upgrade. And I sold it just yesterday for 3,685,000. So in that case, honestly, the comps are not showing that. They are not. So it worked, in one week. I got 4 offers, and then we took one, and that's it. So that's my strategy. Of course, the seller are like worried about it, and I let them know, I want you to be very clear. You are the one who will decide at what price you will sell your home. If we don't get the offer as high as I thought we would be, then you don't have to sell it. So then they relax, because they realize, okay, they don't have to take an offer because they get one. Sometimes they don't seem to realize that. So that's my way of doing it. And then the other way that has really worked for me is that they do a pre-home inspection. I don't understand why not everybody does that, because you don't go into a second negotiation and then things just close faster. You don't fill out of escrow as much. So that's another thing. I get all my clients to do termite, home inspection, sewer inspection, and then it's ready to go once I get the offers. So that's another way. But at 95% of my listing, I'm in escrow within 7 days in 95% of them. So it's been working.
Hey, let me ask you this. When you priced it, the second time you priced it, what, 349?
So this time I priced it at 3,650,000 and I got 3,685,000. Honestly, I could have got more because there were escalation close to 3.8 and I did get other offers. But my clients really liked these particular buyers. They wanted to buy it actually already 2 years ago. And the agent, awesome agent, she wrote a letter to my client saying that their buyer wanted to buy it. So she decided emotionally to go with them, but I would have got higher. I think I could have gone to 3.8.
Okay. So most people would have came in and probably said, hey, we can price at 3,950 or just under 4 and wait for the right person to come along. That's what most agents do. You took the opposite kind of approach and said, look, let's price it competitively so that it creates as much interest as possible, so we get as many offers as possible, and ultimately you decide what you want to take. If you don't want to move a nickel off that price, don't move a nickel. But like I always say, I'd rather bring you 20 offers and have you counter every single one at full price than bring you 0, because 0 gets you 0, right?
Yes.
So great job on that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of inventory sitting there right now, because what we're seeing is the market's going in spurts, and different sectors have different amounts of buyers in those sectors or those buyer pools, right? Some pools are a little bit deeper than others. Some are dry. Some are in the kiddie pool area, right? Where they're an inch deep. That's it. But that's great information. Let's go over to Gary Massa. I love just saying his last name. Massa.
What's happening?
What are you doing? How are you pricing right now? What are you running into? Because I'm even feeling it on some of my listings. They're just sitting there. And these sellers expect it to move in like 48 hours because they're watching the news and reading things on the national level, right? And they're just sitting there and they're not even getting showing. So what are you telling your sellers?
Well, so what I found is, you know, the divide between the mindsets of the buyers and the sellers, you know, have kind of grown further apart the back half of last year. You know, the memory of sellers of their uncle's cousin's brother, whatever, back in 2022, you know, as Matt mentioned, you know, we're seeing multiple offers, you know, pricing was, you know, jumping way above list price, 10, 20%, et cetera. So they were still kind of they've still been in that mindset of like, this is what's happening in the market. And I'm kind of piggybacking off a few things that Matt had mentioned as well. But like when you go into the appointment, you really have to help them understand that, you know, the last, let's say 6 months, even so the market slowed down a lot. And the buyer's expectation was that they were negotiating. You know, there wasn't a lot of offers on properties were sitting, and they were out looking for really good deals. So the mindsets have grown really far apart, and trying to bring those back together throughout the process, I think is tricky, especially, you know, our market here in San Diego has been kind of fluctuating quickly. You know, I mean, we had a definite turn the midpoint or maybe May of last year. And then now all of a sudden I'm feeling within the last 2 weeks or so, we're starting to see that shift back where there's buyer excitement. We're seeing more, you know, people coming through our open houses and starting to, you know, present offers. But I think that the challenge is very real about the seller's expectation, wanting it, you know, wanting to a higher list price or higher expectation, and having to set their expectations or help them understand, you know, the data in the market that like the things have been a little slower and we need to price it competitively. So, you know, there's two things that I'm doing with my process when I'm speaking to my clients. And, you know, I agree with Matt, like no one wants an overpriced listing, neither do I. But sometimes you don't know. The data is telling you that it should be selling for one price and you put it on the market and it's just sitting there, right? But I think it's important to have a plan with all of your, you know, with all of your clients. I've seen recently in our market with my buyer clients, as well as, you know, other listings, that like if we're pricing it just under market, kind of similar to Catherine's strategy, but the listings that are, you know, in good shape, they're, you know, staged, they're remodeled, they're, you know, they're presentable. If they're priced just a little bit under market, they are selling with multiple offers over list price right now. And we're starting to see that with, you know, a lot of examples, especially in that under 2 million range. But then the properties that aren't as, you know, presentable, maybe they're dated or they're not staged or whatever the case, they are taking a lot longer to sell. But again, if your seller isn't in the mindset or you're not really getting that price with them, having a plan of attack with them from the very beginning of, okay, well, let's, you know, the data says that it should be listed here, or maybe, you know, you're stretching it just a little bit for various reasons, but then have that agreement with them up front that like, we're going to reevaluate every 2 weeks. And on the third week, if it's not, you know, if we're not seeing offers and we're not getting, you know, so many showings per week, and that sort of, you know, the conversation, like I love it when buyers come in and they're starting to beat me up over price. I know that we're close. If, you know, buyers are coming into the open houses and showings and like, oh yeah, I love everything, but they're not making offers and they disappear, you're probably a good, you know, at least 5% away from the real price, right? So having those conversations with your clients up front and say, look, you know, our market, even though it's moving a little slower, still within 3 weeks, if we don't have any offer or serious interest, there's an issue. It's either, pricing condition or something that you can't change, like a freeway or a power tower or something like that. But really the only remedy for that is price. And so you're going to have to get to that point really, really quickly. And unfortunately, and I try to show my clients examples of what happens when, you overprice a property and you miss and you're playing the catch-up game, or basically the reduction in price. In every single scenario, you end up, selling it for less than you should have, having been priced the right way in the first place, right? And sometimes that if you do have to make price reductions, it's like catching the falling knife. You want to get way under it to help push it back up, as opposed to just like missing down, 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 down. So having that plan of attack and that strategy from the very beginning of the first, of your listing appointment with them, and within your long-term pricing strategy of the property, I think it's very important to get their buy-off on it. You can even get them to sign, basically modification forms, changing the price at certain intervals. Every 3 weeks, we're going to drop it to this, if that's the case that they want to price it, with the stretch price. So again, every seller's different. Obviously you want to make sure your client's motivated. And the most ideal scenario, I believe right now, is pricing it underneath list price. Now, how far that is, I think that's the trick, that you have to, know your market really, really well. But again, we are seeing a lot more buyers coming back into the market. They're not really in the mindset of paying 10, 15%, over list price. But I think that they're willing to get a little competitive if they feel that there's value in the property. That's usually done by the presentation and the pricing strategy.
I agree. I mean, I think that price is king, right? Especially right now, you have to price it dead on. If you're not pricing it dead on, it's usually sitting. I mean, unless you just have an exceptional property in a market or location that everybody's after and they don't come up, right? Because a lot of the other stuff, we've definitely seen a fall off in buyers in certain price sectors, 100%.
So one other thing I just wanted to add really quick that I'm starting to see, and Matt kind of brought it up about the mindset of in various markets, the seller has seen, this property in particular had sold in 2022, right? Great price. The market's come down, a bit from that, and you can show them the differences. But what I've, just started coming across is the people that have, bought in 2022 that overpaid $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 for the property, and still were able to get those transactions closed, but now are in the position 2 years later that they have to sell because of a job move or whatever the case. They're not being able to get their money out of the house. They might be barely breaking even and or a little bit underwater. And so these conversations I'm having is their mindset is that they feel like the market should have still been ramping upwards at the same trajectory, which it's not. And so I think it's really, how do I put it? It's really important to be able to help show those sellers in 2022, not that you made a bad decision or what, it is what it is, but this is what the market was doing. Here's what it is now, like the trajectory of the market, how many listings are selling, and like at what the list price to sales price ratio is. There's a lot of reports that we have in our market that show the difference from, it used to be 110 or 12%. Now it's like 96, 97% below list, it's below list price, on average where properties are trading at, but also understanding what the sellers have, in terms of their loan. Are they underwater? What is their expectation and how motivated are they? Because those are the sellers that I'm finding that want to launch just a big price just to see what happens. And it's really not, going to be beneficial for anybody.
No.
Well, and sometimes it's just flat in certain markets, and you have to be aware of that too. Is this the only one that's not selling, or are there others not selling? And I would say every 2 weeks you have to do a market-like appraisal on that property and what's happening in that sector of the market. Are they the only ones that are sitting? Are the only ones not getting showings, or are all the others that they're competing with not getting showings? You have to be aware of that and look at, what the absorption rate is on that sector or in that location. Let's go to Dave Luxury Lawson. He's fresh off the slopes. Look at his hair's all pulled back because he went down the mountain around 1,000 miles an hour. right? With no hat on, no helmet, nothing. He's old school. So Dave, what type of conversations are you having with your sellers right now, especially the ones where it's not moving or they want to price it a certain way and you know it needs to be priced a different way?
Yeah, I did. I skied 7 of the last 9 days, so that was super fun. But anyway, the first thing I wanted to say when I saw this subject, so often when we go in to get a listing, you think that you're getting interviewed for the job, but I have the mentality that I'm interviewing them. Are they going to be the right fit for me? Are they going to work with me? Or do they have motivation? Do they, are they just trying to get sky in the pot, just a crazy number, right? So, the thing that's different with us is that we're not really in a declining market. You have to know if you're in a declining market or an appreciating market. And everything you do is based on, do you know the market, right? You've got to be an expert in the market. And people are saying, well, 22 and 23. And I say, yeah, right. You used to get interest rates at 2.5, and now you got to pay 7.5. Or, do you know what's going on with inflation right now? And it all comes down to one thing: supply and demand. I was a business major 40 years ago. I don't remember much, but I remember supply and demand. But you've got to use that, gang. If somebody says back in 22 or 23, well, people were getting 10 offers and they were getting 10% over, you go, yeah, that's because there was 2 sellers and 10 buyers. But right now, we don't have that. We have a number that is much more level. In fact, in our market, in Park City is very, very segmented, and you have to know your numbers. In certain markets, we're selling things, they're flying off the roof. In certain markets, the 2.5 to $5 million stuff is really slow, and the 7, 8, 9, 10 million is pretty high, and the entry level is really low. So one of the things that I've always said is knowing your market. And if I'm talking to a client, the first thing I really want to know is, do they want price or do they want time? If you ask, so Pete, what's more important to you, getting the highest price or selling it the quickest? And, like Matt was saying, if somebody is, or Catherine, if somebody's saying, I've got another house I want to buy, so we go, so it's not about price, it's about time, because we're going to have a different conversation if you want to sell it really fast or slow. The other thing is, and this is, you've already said it, tell stories. And when you tell a story, sometimes it's really good to tell it with your hands or tell it on a piece of paper, right? I can't show you the piece of paper, but when the market is declining, if you have a property that's $2 million up here and well, I'll just use an actual example in a building in Park City, Silverado. 2 bedrooms they were 500, they went to over $1 million. And then they stopped selling, and the people that went to 900 they would sell one. And then the next one was 875, and the next one, and it went down, right? So if you use your hands, or it's better yet, if you show on a piece of paper, you don't want to be the one chasing the price down. So it's better to price it a little bit lower and get it sold if it's in one of those markets. And the other thing is days on market versus the list price to sell ratio is super important. Pete, all of the homes that are priced right are selling within 18 to 30 days. The ones that have price reductions, the average is 123 days. And the people that are more than 10 or 15% over, those are just sitting on the market, right? And if you know all that and you can just let the clients know, your sellers know that and you have the numbers to back it up, you can do it. I've always had a rule: I don't take an overpriced listing if it's more than 10% over the number that I would take. But you got to understand, I'm in a market that is still appreciating for the most part. So everyone has to have their minimum standards. Maybe yours is 5%. Maybe yours is you won't take a listing until it is at the right price. But I'll tell you, I also will never take a listing overpriced if Pete tells me, well, I'm just going to test the market. I don't know where I'm going. You know, if I can get, you know, if I can get this number, I'll take it. So the key is motivation. You have to have your minimum standards. They have to have motivation, and then you have to pick a number that is the right number. So there you go. Thanks.
Love it, Dave. That's great stuff. Really good stuff. I mean, I think we're gonna, as the year progresses, we're gonna come across this more often. Definitely, definitely. Because I can already see in some markets the inventory is building. Whether somebody wants to believe it or not, rates aren't coming down anytime soon. I'm not trying to put that out to the universe. That's just the facts right now with what they're dealing with. I know they're trying to push them down, but I think we're in this rate time for a while. And we better get used to understanding how to break down numbers based on these rates and come up with other solutions like 2-1 buy downs and so forth. Let's go to Karina. Karina, first of all, what's happening in the Space Coast area? And second of all, are you coming across this? And how are you getting people to be realistic with their pricing?
It's all about communication, first of all, right? And the Space Coast, by the way, is rocking. Literally, the rockets are going up. Couldn't resist, sorry.
Yeah.
Mom joke since I can't say a dad joke. So anyways, yes, we have been seeing this now for a while. Previous to this year, we were feeling the pain of a lot of inventory coming on, people wanting to know why their houses weren't selling in 24, 48 hours with multiple offers, what they were going to do to buy a house because, you know, our interest rates were just climbing. And so anybody that was from here was like, no, I'm not going to buy a house at that price when I could have bought it for $250,000 in 2013. Sorry, you missed that timeline, right? So then you have people that are like, no, my corner unit on the pond, on the lake is better than everybody else's. And this is a true story. I had a listing in a 55 and over, the property is only 2 years old. And then all of a sudden, all these duplexes in there decided to all sell at the same time. And so they wanted out, and Costco's just went in, and all these bright lights are all in the back of everybody's properties, but my listing definitely was a premier location because of no neighbors on the one side, and you didn't have all the commercial lighting coming in. So we had a guy, another realtor that came in right before Christmas, 2 weeks before Christmas, and said, my buyer is paying cash for one of the duplexes, and they liked mine the best. The problem is my people were at 420. When everybody else dropped down to under 4, they got missed. And then she was like, well, I don't want to sell at that price. I'm like, okay, you don't have to. It's your investment. It's very important you tell these people that it's their investment, it's their property. You were just there to be their trusted advisor, and you will help them. But at the end of the day, they have the right to say yes or no. And I knew she was going to learn a hard lesson, because I knew that her at 420 and everybody else was at 400 or below, that she felt that her property was more valuable because she overpaid for a lakefront piece of property, which does not in Florida if you're on just a regular man-made lake, because they need to use the dirt to fill us up so we don't sink in Florida, right, with hurricanes and rains and everything else. So what happened is someone he bought it for $380, and now the prices are all under $370, and now she's stuck running it out because they want to go back to not to Utah. I'm looking at David on my screen. They want to go back to Arizona, where they have another property. So now she's going to have to rent it out for years, because those prices aren't going to come up the way they were for a while, right? We all know that. And I know I came into real estate in Florida in 2013, and we not only had the housing market crisis, but in Brevard County, we also had NASA pulled out the month after I moved here, sight unseen, in 09. In January of 10, they stopped the shuttle program. This place went into cobwebs, and nobody was on the road. Nobody had any money. Everybody was scared. They were all laid off. It was a big problem for this county because everybody down to the gas guy supported NASA. So it wasn't until we had a couple of big companies come in. Northrop Grumman brought in like 3,000 engineers making 6 figures. And that's when we saw, and Embraer was another one that came in that started pulling us out of the depths of despair, right? So what we used to do, or what I used to do, even before I was in real estate and I was still in Jersey, I was telling my friends, if you want to sell your house, you need to undercut your neighbors by $1,000. And those were the ones that got out the fastest. And everybody else then was chasing the market downward. So like David said, I'm Italian from Jersey, so I use my hands a lot. So everybody's stepping down, right? And missing the mark. So if you all went to real estate school probably 2016, they were probably still teaching the bell curve that they would teach at real estate school, saying you have 2 weeks to have all your clients go through your house before you start going down that little hill of the bell curve, right? Remember that we all learned it in real estate school. But the problem is that was long before the internet was invented. and because it was also before we had Zillows and Realtor.coms, these people know within 24, 48 hours if a house is overpriced or not, if it looks good, or if it has problems, if it's sloppy, whatever. And that does not help the pricing if it's not done correctly, right? And we can give our advice to everybody, and there's always one that doesn't want to pick up their house or whatever, and they're gonna suffer, honestly. But if you can talk to your clients and say you can either set your price where you think it should be, or we can talk about how to have a winning strategy, then we can have a real conversation. And I'm like David, I have no problem after a seller says they want to hire me and I know they're going to be a problem because they want to overlist. I have no problem saying, I'm not your agent, but let me refer you to someone who is, because it's not going to be worth my time. By the time I struggle with that one seller because he's overpriced and I put so much money out of pocket, I usually put about $8,000 per listing out of pocket. If I can't sell it, I lose $8,000. How many times can you do that before you're out of business, right? So and it's my time, my energy. I could have found 20 more clients for the time that guy takes up woman takes up my time. So
Karina,
you have to
guess
be very
what?
careful what you do. What's that?
You know what? I used to get, when I had these clients, I would give them to people in the office that I didn't like. Because it's not worth it, right? It's see, they think you're interviewing you. No, you're interviewing them.
Every time.
And when you have that mindset, it changes everything.
That's right.
And 6% of all the listings I go on, I turn down.
Yeah, that's great. I won't take a listing for less than 3.5% because I'm putting so much money out of my pocket. So a lot of that comes back to keep the business running. So we have that conversation, and then they understand that they're hiring a professional, but you have to make sure that you come prepared to present yourself as a professional. So I'll leave you with this one last note. I'm a terrible fisherman. I cannot catch a fish to save my life. My sister would stand side by side of me and she would catch all the fish. I'd catch nothing. I switched poles with her because I was a big sister. I said, give me your pole. Didn't catch anything. I wanted her to put the bait on my pole. It must be the scent on her hand. Had nothing to do with it. You know what it had to do with? I'm a really good trolling fisherwoman when it comes to catching a client for my listings. And the way I do it, and I'm going to teach you my secret, is I tell my clients we're going to do something called trolling. And what it is if I feel like, and I can't remember if it was David or someone else, but sometimes I'll let someone be a little bit overpriced. If it's $20,000, I can knock that down pretty quickly if we're overpriced. And I tell them I don't have the crystal ball. None of us do, right? There could be that one client that absolutely has to have that house because they grew up in that house and now they want it back. You never know. So I tell them I'll put my pinky toe in the water, but in the listing contract, on the additional terms on the last page, I'm going to put in there that within 1 week, 7 days, 10 at most, if we were missing a weekend, that if we don't have a full price offer or a reasonable offer that you're willing to accept, then we're going to come down. And this is how we come down. I do it $5,000. If you're in luxury, it's a little bit higher, but in a typical, normal, up to $700,000 house, I will do $5,000 increments. It's not enough to make them choke right away, so I can get away with it. But if you do it Friday, you know what happens? Your listing pops up. People are like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that listing because they're looking at 1,000 properties right now in one county, right? So, or more if they're for whatever their search criteria is. If you do it that way, and on the luxury, I'm doing it at a higher volume dollar amount, I sell it every freaking time in under a month. Every time. It's enough to entice someone to get off their butt and put their pen to paper. Or bring in a number
Every
that
Friday, you drop and say the luxury one's what, 25, 50 grand?
depends on where you're at price wise
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how much overage you think you are to get them to get down enough to, but even if you're trapping at 10,000, you're still reminding people you're here. You're like, hey, look at me. We want to sell.
Right.
We're not desperate, but we want to sell. We're trying to attract you. You know what I mean? And because I have some sellers that are like, oh, Karina, I don't know. People are going to think there's something wrong with our house. I said, no, someone's going to think something's wrong with your house when it doesn't sell. So this is you telling the market, come over. We want to have a party and sell you our house. Right. And I find that even more valuable than an open house.
We say that a price reduction is a marketing strategy.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, what this allows me to do, Karina, is every Friday for the weekend, I get to remarket your house. I put it back up at the top of Zillow and Realtor.com and Homes.com and all of that. We get to send it out. Everybody that's seen the show and everybody that has saved the property on our websites, they get a new email, right?
That's
So
right.
price reductions aren't bad. They can be, and when you say a price reduction is just a marketing strategy, then they get it. And the other thing is, I say, guess how it works? So if we lower it this Friday, there's agents, and then we lower it next Friday, then there's people out there that are going, well, I'm just going to wait until next Friday when you do it. And you go, yeah, you can wait, but it's probably not going to be available. Oh, I didn't think of that. So
Yeah, it creates urgency. Yeah, especially after the first one. And so it works. And it all started because I was selling a 2-story house here in Florida. And I didn't know when I came from Jersey that 2-story houses were no bueno. Then up north, if someone has a ranch house, you're like, sorry about your luck. Down here in Florida, you have a 2-story, they're like, sorry about your luck. I didn't understand why. It's because nobody wants to go on the second floor and put up the metal hurricane shutters. And so I did it on my own house. That was a 2-story. And that's how I realized, that's when I started the whole trolling thing. I was like, I got to come up with a way to get someone to, and it was someone from Michigan who bought my house. So they too wanted a 2-story house with for their kids. But yeah, so there's all sorts of ways you can do it, but this is definitely a proven working strategy that has worked every time for me. And I've done it many times, many times.
Just want to throw something on that real quick because I'm not going to have time to talk today, and I want Cam and Russ and Craig too. I do the same thing, but I do $100 a week. And it's worked unbelievable. I do it every Thursday evening. So the Friday morning feed comes out with a new feed. I do it strictly for marketing. If I'm way overpriced, yes, Karina, I'll drop bigger numbers. But generally, we've done that. I just did this. One of our agents called me 2 weeks ago. Couldn't get a bite on his house. We dropped it $100 for 2 weeks in a row under contract. So it's phenomenal. Works phenomenal.
That's why we're the same, Mitch.
No, that's awesome. I think that's a great idea, and you got to keep it moving. You can't stay status quo and expect a miracle, right? You got to have a lot of holy water to get a house to move that's not legitimately priced. Let's go from there. Let's go over to Ross the Boss Stout. There he is. He's got his backdrop. He's trying to stay dry. It's raining out. Talk to us. How are you dealing? I see a lot of inventory coming on the desert personally. I see it every day. It's not my market. I'm just making an observation. How are you dealing with that and getting people to get realistic about their pricing?
Yeah, it's so interesting, especially like in a desert market where kind of similar to Dave's, there could be no urgency because it's all second home or investment. And if the numbers don't work out or if you're not comfortable, there's no urgency, no need. So how do you create that, right? And I heard everyone talking about just starting from the beginning when you're setting expectations on price. Sometimes in a slower market like we've been dealing with in the desert, it's okay to be the second person in. You don't buy a listing, stick to your guns. And then by the time that the house is beat up and the first listing agent is beat up because they were gung-ho and they're going to take it at a higher list price and reduce their commission, the seller's already gone through the ringer and they're like, just tell me what to do. You were right. And then you get to step in and be the hero. It's always nice to be the hero if you don't get it on the first try, but don't. In this market, I would recommend, just like Corinna, just like Dave was saying, don't jump in and buy a listing. And Gary was nail on the head too. So you guys are all right on theme, which in what is, in my opinion, still a buyer heavy market. I just got like, we're pretty heavy on buyers and on my crew, being that we run a Zillow Flex team up and down the state. But like I had one offer to go through that I was working on right now, and we just shaved like 30 grand off the $700,000 house. And they didn't even counter, and they threw all the furnishings in. It's like, cool, we want to sell it, so here you go. So take advantage of that on the buy side also, because no matter what a property's listed at, expectations have been set that it's a slow market. So you can play it, with your sellers, because you got to know those expectations are already set. They already had 5 people tell them, well, it's probably going to sell at this number. So you can go in and know that they've listed above what market's going to yield, even though it shows that it's at market value, because we are slightly competitive when it comes to the sellers, because there's not much on the market. There's not a lot of buyers that are motivated. It's an interesting space. So pricing, so it's an anomaly. I've heard some of you say it. I threw a home that backed up to 7-Eleven and was on a busy road on the market. And I was like, this thing ain't selling. It sells in like 2 weeks. And then my beautiful luxury home that's under market in the best neighborhood in the desert is just sitting there. Wildly different price points, but still, like, where's the motivation? You can't quite pin it. You just have to be ready for the long haul, continually set expectations. And just like all of you on this panel do, you got to communicate with your seller more than ever, because if you let too much time go without updates, or even if it's like outside of your weekly cadence, like throwing another call, just let them know what's going on, because if you don't, they're going to think you're not working and they can move on to the next, because it can be frustrating when you're sitting in the seller's seat right now. So those are just things that I'm seeing, working on. I have a lot of listings that are sitting, had a lot of listings that have sold recently. I can't figure it out. I guess I'm not very smart, but that's there's no rhyme or reason in what I'm working on. It's just nice to move stuff.
Keep moving, stay positive. I like that.
Yeah.
I know why you sold the one at the 7-Eleven. I know you gave away a year worth of Slurpees. That's why I put it over
It probably
the top.
was on the price reduction they got, if you equate it out to that.
Yeah,
But
how
one
many-
thing I will say, like
Go ahead.
inactivity in this market, inactivity is going to yield like really negative results. And I'm like taking it from your personal life. If you become inactive, if you're not working on yourself, if you're not going to the gym, if you're not reading, what are you going to grab at night? You're going to grab ice cream. You're going to continue to like feed that negativity going on in your life. Take that into real estate and start putting positive actions in every day. Don't get defeated about the obstacles in your way. Take them as a personal challenge and climb to that mountaintop. You will find the results. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't have the timeline, but if you can show that you're putting in that positive work effort, and then you feel that positivity going on, you can create just that momentum by your own actions. So keep that in mind.
That's great advice, because it can turn negative pretty quickly, and it can be tough because the people are sitting in the seller's seat saying, what have you done for me lately? Right.
Yeah.
And you're trying to show it. If you're part of EXP Luxury, you guys, we have a great tool where it markets every week to 80 or 90 of the top luxury websites that all the luxury buyers go to. And then it gives you a printout, and it gives you all the analytics and shows you the unique visitors and how many times they shared all the photos or the website itself. So that's a big thing, and it creates conversations with the sellers. So if you're not part of that, reach out to me and I'll get you a link, become part of it, because that right there is worth its weight in gold. All right, let's go. Before I go to Cam, because I know he's fired up, he's waiting. We have to just first pay tribute to the ROG, the real estate opportunity guy, otherwise known as world champion, right? The world champion Eagles, with their beatdown of KC, which nobody on the Zoom liked it better than I did, because it solidified Tom Brady, my Patriots championships. Nobody comes close. But ROG, if you're there, I don't know if I see you.
I'm here.
Okay, he's there. Okay. ROG, look at, he's got the Eagles on. Look at it. It
right.
continues. Every day is Christmas, right?
One more day of green tomorrow.
I love it. Every
One
day
more
is
day of
Christmas. You guys, mark my words. He'll be wearing that sweatshirt until St. Patty's Day, and they'll say one more day of green, right? He'll just keep going. ROG, what are you seeing in your market, and how are you getting people to realistically price their listings or have those challenging conversations about coming to reality?
I'm finding that the price points over $1 million is sitting, that they're not really coming to the market. Because those are the people that aren't sure where they're gonna go. The 300 to the 600 is definitely moving, and they're not going up in price, they're pretty much pricing the same. So if you're not accelerating the price, like some agents coming in to buy the listing that we talked about, you're going to get it and it's gonna sell within, 3 to 4 weeks max in our marketplace. Our average time on days on market is now 63, which is way up overall when it used to be 14. What I'm doing with homes that are sitting, I'm having a hard talk with the seller, but what a lot of the times is we have a problem because they have an ego problem. It's their ego that's showing the number that they want to try, that their friends don't see the number that they're really willing to take. So I'm kind of having a hard conversation with them saying, how do we do this? I'm literally asking them, what's your knockdown? What's your knockdown price? If somebody came to you with a number, what is it? So if they're listed at, like we have one at 245, and I said, what's your knockdown? He goes, look, my knockdown is 2,150. I'm like, well, we're way off. I know, but I don't want to leave that space in the price if I could get a little more because I'm not that motivated yet. So he's given me the okay to call every agent or every buyer that we've had and say, look, the knockdown's 2,150. Any interest in doing that? So we're kind of backdooring it while we're dealing with the seller who's dealing with the front door on their ego. So that's really the thing that I've been working on because a lot of them aren't making that position change yet. They don't want to make that jump into the spring yet because we don't have the weather. I mean, we've got photo shots being done today, and we've got snow, mist, and we're not going to get drone shots, and we're not going to get good exteriors. The sellers actually all wanted to cancel. I'm like, you're absolutely not canceling because we're not putting it off. We got to get to the market now before the spring market comes. So that's, along with what everybody else is doing, that's the gist that we've been doing, is just going back and trying to revitalize anybody who could be alive on the listings when there's nobody really coming out to them right now. Muted.
The spring market is around 3 to 4 weeks away tops. Another suggestion I would give you, which I just did on a big listing in Nashville, is get some of the interior shots reshot, right? Because I shot those during the holidays. It sends the wrong message to the buyers. It says, oh, this is kind of a listing that's been sitting there since the holidays, like the Christmas trees up, or they have wreaths everywhere. Spend the money, get the photographer back out. It takes around an hour. Have them reshoot it, and then redo your marketing with that. And then it shows them how proactive you're being. Because if you let it sit there with old photos and you're not refreshing it every week or change around the write-up or change around the photo order, it's going to get flat. People are just going to pass by. Oh, there's the one with the Christmas tree. I'm going to go buy that. I'll check back next week. Oh, there it is with the Christmas tree. It's been out there now 38 days. Nobody wants it. You got to keep this fresh and lively because there's new buyers in the marketplace every day, every week. And that's how you have to look at it. You have to have that positive mindset and use the law of attraction and manifestation to get there. Like I said, my favorite book is Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting. Read that book. It teaches you about the law of attraction and manifestation. Let's go to Cam the Man. Cam, take us home. I know it's tough to follow up a champion, okay? I know it's tough to follow up a world champion and a good-looking guy in green, but you can do it. So bring us home. What are you doing with your listings? How are you getting them realistic to get in a position to sell without them thinking, oh, you just want me to go there because it's going to make your job easier? Go ahead.
Definitely. Great questions. And this is how we make our money, you guys. This is where the money meets the pavement for agents. This is the special stuff. So 3 critical steps that we use. I'm going to do them. We got 3 minutes, so I'm going to try to be fast. So get your pen and pencil ready. You have to be finding sellable listings, right? Not all listings are going to sell these days. The market has changed. We are over that. If you missed it, you missed it, but we are now in a different type market. So you need to be finding sellable listings. How you do that, step one is your attitude or your mindset going into getting listings, finding listings. What you say to these people, what you say to these potential clients, these sellers really matters, you guys. They are trusting you as being the expert. So what you tell them and how you tell it to them, obviously I'm very dramatic. But they understand that. It gets them it helps them understand. And when you do that, you are able to help them understand what the market is in your area. So number two is setting expectations. Actually, hold on. Your attitude and mindset before we jump there. The key to keeping a positive mindset, because you have to be positive, you guys. Nobody wants to have someone that's negative come in and sell their house. You have to be, in my opinion, over the top. We have mass opportunities. If you're doing your prospecting and you're doing your work and you have multiple listing opportunities coming up, you're not desperate to get the one that you know is not going to sell. It's just, you don't care. It's like, hey, that guy's a dummy. Let's move on to the next one. So that's why we're using Espresso to do the expireds now. We're doing our farming through Espresso. There's a lot of expireds down here in Southwest Florida. So if the opportunity and the volume is there, your mindset is just, it's totally different. You're not desperate. So number two, seller expectations and how you're setting seller expectations. It's all communication. We already talked about that. But I think it's really key to be concise and consistent from the entire first conversation to your pre-listing package, to during the presentation, to even the post email. You have to consistently be telling these guys, this market's tough. We are in a price decline. I'm telling people, based on what we're seeing, it's probably going to be 5 to 7 years before we get back to the price we're at today. Is that okay for you? Some people say yes. Those are one of those that you just wave and say goodbye. The people that say, no, I don't want to be here in 5 to 7 years. Great. I can help you. But you have to be consistent with what the market's doing. You have to be able to convey that throughout the entire process, even before you list the home. Now, use stories to convey your message. I just had a property that we listed. There was some comparables that were listed for 1,700 days. Guys, you can't be that guy. No one wants to have their home for sale for 1,700 days. So when you're talking with people and you're showing them the comparables, you need to explain to them days on market, and how it negatively affects your home, how you're chasing the market, so forth and so forth. But it's very, very important to use the stories. That's how people understand things. No one's going to listen to you tell them. They want to explore and learn with you. So use the stories. And then the other for seller expectations, give the sellers a range that they're able to pick from. Now that range has to be good from top to bottom, and maybe it's 5% over the market or 15% under them, or whatever. Give them a range so that they're in control. But the truth is, you're controlling that range. So you start the whole process off with control. Super, super important. And the third step is, you guys, is pricing it aggressively or properly. If you are going to take it at a little bit out over price, make sure you have a pre-signed price reduction. Okay, you guys, don't wait so that in 7 days you got to go back to your seller and go, hey, you remember how no, get it done at the time that you're signing everything. They don't even care. They'll sign it when they're signing all the other documents. You obviously explain it to them. Make sure you're doing, first weekend Oprah houses. That's going to get you a ton of activity. If there's any activity, that's going to be it. And then make sure throughout the whole process, you're telling and you're explaining why the first offer, at least in our markets, is probably going to be their best offer, and they need to accept it. They can't lose this opportunity. That's going to be a huge loss for them if they lose that first opportunity. So my favorite quote when we're talking about pricing, my favorite quote when we're talking about declining markets, and I actually say this sometimes before they give me the objection, is, hey, listen, I know this price isn't going to be what you want it to be. And if you're going to give your home away, you could give it to me. I'd gladly take it. And it kind of breaks the ice, because they're expecting that harsh pickaxe into their souls. And it's like, no, guys, listen, I'm going to tell you a cute little joke about, if you want to give your home away, give it to me, right? And then you can move forward with the pricing. Don't take overpriced listings. Help the sellers understand why pricing it too high will in the end cost them more money, and you're going to just flourish. But the number one key, you guys, is having a lot of opportunities, volume of opportunities. Get your prospecting done, get the listing presentation set up. Don't be desperate. People smell that, right? They smell that desperate. So that's it, you guys. That's what I got.
That's a good closeout. I love that. Don't be desperate, you guys. Some of the best listings I ever took were the ones I didn't take originally. You know, just keep that in mind. And that's the type of market we're going in. You have to be really, really confident and secure on what things are worth. I mean, sometimes it's tough to pinpoint it. You can say, look, we can try this, but I'm going to be monitoring it. If we're not getting showings or we're not getting offers, you're not going to be able to sell it and move. So we can't just hope for the needle in the haystack to come out of nowhere. It hardly ever happens, right? We got to take high percentage shots. So that's the key. But invite people next week here, you guys. This is a very, very important mastermind. We're giving out a lot of tips and all the things that people need to really get it going, okay? But you got to be consistent. You got to be committed. You have to be scheduled, and you have to be in the right positive mindset. So let's have a great weekend. A lot of things happening. We're building up towards the spring market, and we'll share everything we're doing to be productive and to do a ton of business. But you got to show up. You have to listen. You have to ask questions. You have to be proactive. Okay. See you next week.
See you guys.
Have a great week.